Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Miscellaneous Gab, and you better believe it, we are back for another Severance rewatch review and analysis. Now, apologies that I haven't uploaded this sooner. I've had my notes here for about a month, but if you're a member of my Patreon, you understand why I haven't been uploading as often. Either way, I am back, and I sincerely thank everyone for their support, especially my paid Patreon members who have stuck by me even though I haven't been uploading quite as often. But now we are back, baby, discussing episode 4 of our Severance rewatch entitled The You Are. To the two people who have come into my comments telling me that I'm reaching for content, just get out of here. I am spending hours, unpaid hours of my life rewatching. I could just rewatch and geek out on my own, but I want to geek out with you. I want to share my thoughts with you. For all of you who are also missing Severance and who are excited for these chats, I love you very much. You know the drill. I start with a spoiler-free summary. When I say spoiler-free, I mean it only contains spoilers for this episode and previous episodes, and then I get into a spoiler-filled analysis where I talk about what we can learn from this episode to predict what's going to happen in season 3 or what can help us understand season 2 through a new lens. So we begin this episode with Helly. She's in the break room. That's kind of where we left off last episode. She has caused a lot of problems and drama, and so she's finally being punished for it. Mark cannot take her punishment. We realize that this is some sort of psychological torture designed to break you. They're kept in there for hours and hours and hours reciting the same thing over and over again. They're hooked up to some sort of machine that proves whether they mean it or not. Meanwhile, Mark, who now has Petey's phone, sees that someone is blowing up his phone. It continues to ring, and so far Mark is too afraid to answer it, and unfortunately Petey's gone. Back at the severed office, Burt, with the romance kind of brewing, offers Irv a tour. Irv takes him up on it immediately. When Dylan and Helly discuss the break room, Dylan's reflecting on ways to fool it, like how to pretend you're sorry. So crazy. Them trying to outsmart their being tortured situation. In line with the title of this, there's a big discovery. Irving finds the book, The You Are, which is the book from Rickon that Miss Cobel stole. We saw Milchick reading it, and now it's just kind of left absentmindedly in this room. He takes it to Mark and says that books are not allowed. There's also a message from Rickon in the front cover, so it feels very odd that it's addressed to Mark. Irving thinks it's some sort of loyalty test, which is very Soviet Union, if you ask me. Mark is in a not so great mood. He shreds the map that Petey left him in an act of defiance. And after the break room, Helly demands a video to her Audi or she'll cut off her fingers. She's convinced that now at this point, she's finally cracked the code. She's going to go home. As she gets in the elevator, she says,
"Well, boss, guess this is the part where I should tell you to go to hell. Except you're already here. I was never sorry."
What a great thing to end on. And then just minutes later, like literally in the blink of an eye, she's back. She returns and her request is denied once more. I think over and over, she's really feeling this betrayal from who she sees as a part of her Audi. She always says, my Audi will listen to me. My Audi wouldn't do this. And it must be making her ask a lot of questions that even when I'm on the verge of cutting off my fingers, clearly I'm this miserable that you don't care about me. You don't think I'm a person. That level of betrayal, even for someone who has technically lived such a short life, must sting so much. Mark, meanwhile, gets an alert about Petey's death on the outside. Cobel, who is still dealing with Petey's death, insists that he was reintegrated and tells Grainer that they must get his chip. More on this later. There's a lot to this scene. I've talked about this in other videos as well. She's also such a bitch, telling Grainer to,
"If you want a hug, go to hell and find your mother."
I forget just how mean Miss Cobel is in this first season. On the outside, Cobel and Mark both attend Petey's funeral, and we see this crazy, horrible scene of her actually drilling out the chip in Petey's brain. Now, the first couple times I watched this, I was just so stunned and shocked that I was like, holy crap. The more I watch this, the more I'm like, literally how? The funeral upsets Audi Mark, who is thinking about death, clearly. He goes to visit the scene of Gemma's crash, meditating on what he's lost. Back inside, Burt and Irving meet once more after that kind of awkward hand holding. And Mark begins his next act of defiance, which is reading the UUR without turning it in. In my opinion, the UUR is like the opposite of Kier's handbook, where Kier is all about his children of industry coming, working, toiling. The UUR says your job needs you, not the other way around. This is pretty revolutionary for these innies who don't have an identity outside of work. Work is his purpose for life. It's why he exists. And for this book to come along and say, no, you are the individual, you are the center here, you make the choices, you call the shots, it's got to be pretty eye-opening. Finally, at the end of the episode, Helly reaches her final breaking point. We've had so many escape attempts. She's hurt herself. She's threatened to mutilate herself. And finally, she has reached the point where she is ready to end her own life. It's kind of like, if I can't live, neither can you. I think Helly has felt so out of control. She's finally ready to take things to the extreme. She hangs herself and we get this horrible, terrible scene of the elevator coming up and down, flashing in between Helly and her Audi in these moments of shock and terror. We don't know what's happening. We will find out next episode. You probably found out as soon as you hit the play next episode, because who can end on that note and not resist playing the next episode? That's going to be the final part of my summary section. So if you haven't watched the rest of season 1 and season 2, definitely tap out now, but please like this video, subscribe to my channel, comment below, and let's get into the analysis filled with spoilers. This one's a fun one, guys. And I think a different color is in order, just to set the tone. We know from the break room that Helly hears the voice of an angry, grumbling old man.
What about the voice behind the door?
Wonder who that could be. Probably the same man that Dylan called freaking handsome in the last episode. That's right, creepy McDaddy Jerkbox James Egan reporting for duty. This is proof that the outside world can seep in. And I still maintain my theory that this is what Cold Harbor is all about. It's not so much letting the inside come out, it's letting the outside come in, and that is the real danger to creating a docile and obedient workforce. Also, seeing how wrecked Helly was after spending about 6 to 8 hours in the break room made me realize that freaking Peg spent 2 weeks in the break room. What were they doing to her? This actually scares me. I think there's an underbelly of the silliness and the Mr. Milchick of it all about what actual horrible, terrible things are doing there. Obviously, having someone recite something over and over again for 6 to 8 hours is pretty cruel and awful, but in the spectrum of cruel and awful things, it still isn't up there with that happening for 2 weeks, or getting somebody pregnant against their will. You know what the word is. James Egan siring others in the shadows. You know what I mean. Also, I noticed that Irving tells time in military hours. I love stuff like this. I love it. I love it. I love it. Yes, a hint indeed. When Burt comes in to MDR, Dylan wields a stapler at him.
Exactly how the wet fuck do you know where this office is?
Really speaks to the fear, the propaganda, in order to get these departments to not interact with each other. It makes me wonder what has happened before, and also what is gonna happen now that we've ended season 2 with MDR, C&M, Mammalian Searchable. I need to create a video of like top 10 best Dylan moments. Burt knows, believe me, Burt knows. If anything, I'm more convinced that Burt is not severed. He's a spy, he's here, he's a plant, he's a honey trap to prevent Irving from falling asleep and having more of that outside the message seeping in. There's this lie, this pervasive lie that there's only 2 people in O&D. We also have this scene where Helly reminds Mark to be loyal to Petey. This is when Mark is upset, doing the drastic shit that Mark does, shredding Petey's map. And it reminded me so much of her talk with Dylan and Irving when Dylan is kind of tapping out, he's not being valiant and brave. Helly is so consistent through and through. She's trying to remind Mark of what it means to be a good friend. Your best friend is gone and now you forget about him. She also had to remind Dylan of that later after Irving was gone. Like I said before, Helly films that video for her Audi, and I forgot just how much in these early episodes she's relying on her Audi to save and protect her. It's really a true betrayal. It's like when a child is let down by their parents in a big way from an early age. She's learning things about herself, about her Audi, about the world, and none of them are good things. We have this interesting scene of of Cobel repeating the values. She repeats Wiles. Does she do this to ground herself? I think with what we know about Cobel in season 2, it's really about how pervasive that ideology of Kier and how she was raised is almost integral into her own coping mechanisms. It's almost like her creation, the thing she created, Severance, is spiraling out of control and she's trying to reel it back in, maybe remembering why and who and what she did it for. Now, Cobel and June meet at the funeral. June was Petey's daughter. And I know we really stepped away from the Whole Mine Collective and some of that underground resistance. We know that June is cool as hell. And it does make me wonder, will she come back in season 3? I do think the world is about to get a lot bigger, the outside world in particular. I know that we're now seeing different departments in Severance, but I feel like we're going to see these different pockets of resistance on the outside world. And I really hope that they haven't just dropped Petey completely, because in the scheme of things, Petey just happened like within the last couple months. Also, I think the scene of Cobel getting the chip out of Petey's head should have been some sort of hint that Homegirl is more than a manager. She has more than a business administration degree from college. I talked about this in just a few minutes ago, but the fact that there was no autopsy, or was there? Don't you think they would have taken the chip out of the brain during the autopsy when a man just, I guess, collapses on the street and this wasn't just some identityless man, like he's a man from the community, through cause of death unknown? There's this phrase about the chip. When they look at the chip, they say, that's Petey. You know, we've talked about this a lot, especially with now what we know about what the refining files actually does. It's this idea that the INI actually lives in the chip. What they're refining, the completed files, are the creations of new INIs. So if Petey is still in that chip, could Petey be brought back in some way? Remember how Dr. Maurer says when Mark and Gemma are leaving in the elevator, you'll kill them all? Is he talking about all of the INIs? Have they extracted chips from people's heads before? Seems like this is not Cobel's first rodeo. Maybe some of Rickon's friends like Rebecca or some people got into accidents and then chips were put in their brains and they became different people. They changed. I don't know. But I don't think Cobel stayed long enough at Lumon to really explore that. Maybe she still has the chip. Maybe there's more that she's going to do with the chip to learn what went wrong with reintegration so she could help support Mark. Maybe she'll use that information to take down Lumon. Cobel instructs for Mark to have a special wellness session. It's like she knows he's going through some shit. The funeral that's made him a little bit sad and depressed. He's revisiting the site of Gemma's crash. It's like Cobel knows he's tender, and whether she looks at him like a little experiment or someone she truly cares for, she's somehow giving him some sort of special support. Or maybe it's to see that in these raw moments, in these moments where he's actually not drowning out Gemma's death, he's feeling the feels, that more might come back to him. Candle is lit, the same candle that Cobel found in the basement. And I'm genuinely still so curious about her motives. It's almost like, is she just simply trying to see if her own process is fallible? Or does she feel for Mark? Does she want him to remember? Does she hope that in some world, maybe he and Gemma can be together, even if it's on the severed floor? I don't know. I'm sure it was Cobel's idea to make Gemma Miss Casey as a separate INI. Is it because she genuinely thinks that a visit from the person that he cares about on some level of consciousness will actually bring him peace? Does she wish that she could have that with the people who have passed in her life, i.e. her mother? Or is this some sort of sick and twisted experiment and Mark is just a rat? Finally, at the end of the episode, Mark forms that tree, which we can imagine is the same tree from the car crash, in his wellness session, and that Irv finds out there are more employees in O&D. Again, just emphasizing the point, why was Burt lying? Is it just as simple as they were trying to protect themselves because everyone is suspicious of the different departments, or is it really something more? That's all I have for you today in terms of episode 4. I'll be back in your feed soon with episode 5. I already watched it. I have my notes here. Thank you to everyone who watches, who supports, who comments, even in the off season when we're not watching or thinking about Severance as much. There are a lot of other shows that I want to talk through and review that you can catch in my weekly summaries and analyses. Thank you to my Waffle Party VIP members. Thank you to Bo Dierker, Chris Bazeski, Daniel Ariano, Marlon Yamzon, Dolores Abernathy, Jim Rodney, and Matt Winberry. Thank you guys so much for continuing to support my dreams, my passion, my hobbies, and thank you to all my other paid members. Remember, whatever you do, just don't get severed, no matter how hard it gets out there. I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.